Jihad Idais guards his herd. The goats are his family's main source of income, and he's worried the Israeli settlers will come back and take them away. Jihad lives in this Palestinian Bedouin community which has been here for 50 years. It's surrounded by illegal and expanding Israeli settlements that began appearing in the 1980s. He says the settlers recently forced him to pay a fine of 150,000 shekels, about $40,000, because they said his goats had strayed onto their land that, according to international law, is not theirs.
It was about 7:30 in the morning. I took my sheep to graze in a nearby area that I always go to. Suddenly, settlers with protection of Israeli soldiers attacked us and confiscated the animals. They threatened us and said either we pay or they would take the sheep away. Since the 7th of October, settlers are trying to kick us out more than ever before.
We go to speak to the settlement council. We are not allowed in, and after repeated phone calls are told to email the council's lawyer detailing the case. The Bedouin of the occupied West Bank have lived here for centuries. Members of one community tell us some of the attacks and stock theft have been led by this man. Zohar Saba lives in an illegal settler outpost close by. He passes us in his car as we walk, accompanied by Israeli human rights activists, to what we are told is another settler with goats. Many of the Bedouin living in this area have had either their goats killed or in some instances their entire herds confiscated. We've come down to speak to an Israeli settler who has a herd of goats in the valley behind me. Many of these settlers are armed, and the Bedouin tell us that many of them have either the implicit or the actual practical support of the Israeli army in this area. The young unarmed settler looks nervous and refuses to answer our questions about Zohar, who watches us from inside his car, which is parked on a nearby hill.
Zohar, excuse me.
A few minutes later, he ignores us as we try to flag him down.
Slowly, they're closing on them, and here, for example, few family already left. So it's quiet terror, but it's still terror.
The settlement council's lawyer replied to our email. He said Jihad had broken the law by allowing his goats to stray, but there was no mention of the fact the animals had roamed onto land occupied illegally by Israel, according to international law. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, Ma'ar Rajat, in the occupied West Bank.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.